My 9-year-old son wouldn't let me in. When something went wrong at school, he'd handle it alone. When he was hurt or upset, he'd lock himself in his room. When I'd try to help or comfort him, he'd push me away with "I'm fine, I don't need anything." I thought he was just naturally independent until a therapist said something that stopped my heart. Your son isn't independent. He's avoidant. He's learned that needing you isn't safe, so he's shut down emotionally to protect himself. And you've been creating this pattern through 3 habits you probably don't even notice. I was devastated because everything I'd been doing I thought was good parenting. But these 3 subtle daily habits were teaching my son that vulnerability leads to rejection, that emotions are burdens, and that he had to handle everything alone. Once I understood what I was doing and changed these 3 patterns, my son slowly started opening up again. It took months, but our relationship transformed. If your child seems emotionally distant, overly self-reliant, or won't come to you when they need support, hit that like button and subscribe right now because these 3 habits might be creating avoidant attachment, and understanding them could save your relationship with your child. Let me start by explaining what avoidant attachment actually looks like because it's often mistaken for healthy independence or resilience. A securely attached child feels comfortable seeking support when needed and comfortable being independent when appropriate. They trust that vulnerability is safe and that their needs matter. An avoidant child has learned through repeated experiences that needing others isn't safe, so they suppress their needs, handle everything alone, appear overly self-sufficient, and shut down emotionally. They don't trust that people will be there for them, so they've adapted by not needing anyone. This isn't strength or independence. It's a protective adaptation to unavailable or dismissive caregiving. The first habit that creates avoidant attachment is one I was doing constantly, and it's dismissing, minimizing, or being uncomfortable with your child's emotions, particularly vulnerable ones like sadness, fear, and hurt. When your child comes to you upset and you respond with "You're fine, it's not that bad, don't cry. You're being too sensitive, stop being dramatic." Or "Big kids don't cry about that," you're teaching them their emotions are unacceptable and that you're not safe to be vulnerable with. I would do this all the time, thinking I was teaching resilience and not dwelling on negative feelings. My son would be sad about something and I'd say, "Shake it off, you'll be fine." Or he'd be scared, Red, and I'd say, "There's nothing to be scared of, don't be a baby." What I didn't realize was that every time I dismissed his emotions, I was teaching him that his feelings were a problem I didn't want to deal with, that vulnerability led to rejection, and that he should hide his real feelings from me to avoid that dismissal. The shift I had to make was radical acceptance and validation of all emotions without trying to fix them or make them go away. Now when my son is upset, I say things like, "That sounds really hard, tell me more about what you're feeling," or "I can understand why that would make you sad. I'm here with you." I'm not agreeing that the situation is catastrophic. I'm not solving it. I'm just accepting that he feels what he feels and being present with him in it. This has slowly taught him that emotions are safe with me, that vulnerability won't be rejected, and that he can come to me with his real feelings. The second habit is praising independence and self-reliance excessively while subtly shaming or criticizing help-seeking and neediness. I used to say things like, "I love how you figured that out all by yourself. You didn't even need my help, or you're so independent. You never ask for anything, you're such a big kid." I thought I was building confidence, but what I was actually teaching my son was that needing me was bad, that asking for help was weakness, that independence was what earned my love and approval. At the same time, when he would come to me for help, I'd sometimes respond with, "Can't you do that yourself? You're old enough," or I'd express subtle frustration that he needed me instead of handling it alone. The combined message was clear. I value you when you don't need me, and I'm disappointed when you do. This is textbook avoidant attachment creation. Children learn that their worth is tied to not being a burden, to handling everything independently, and to never showing need. The fix was deliberate and felt counterintuitive at first. I started praising help-seeking and vulnerability as much as independence. I'd say things like, "I'm really glad you asked me for help with that. That was smart and brave," or "It takes courage to admit when something's hard. I'm proud of you for telling me." I also made sure my responses to his requests for help were warm and welcoming instead of subtly annoyed. Now, when he asks for help, I say, "Of course, I'm always here when you need me," and I show genuine pleasure in being asked instead of frustration. If you want to understand attachment deeply and raise emotionally healthy children, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications because this is the foundation of everything. The third habit, and this one runs deep in many of us, is being inconsistently emotionally available or responsive based on your own emotional state, stress level, or whether their need is convenient. Some days you're warm, attuned, and fully present when your child needs you. Other days you're short, dismissive, or emotionally shut down because you're stressed, tired, or overwhelmed. This unpredictability teaches children they can't count on you to be there, so they learn to stop reaching out to avoid the risk of rejection or unavailability. I realized my emotional availability was all over the map. When I was in a good mood and not stressed, I'd be patient, warm, and responsive to my son's needs. But when I was overwhelmed or having a hard day, I'd be short with him, dismiss his needs, or be emotionally distant. My son learned he couldn't predict whether I'd be available or not, so he stopped trying. He started handling everything alone because asking for me was too risky. He might get warm mom or he might get distant mom, and the uncertainty was worse than just not asking. The work I had to do here was about my own emotional regulation and self-awareness. I had to notice when I was stressed or overwhelmed and actively choose not to take that out on my son through emotional withdrawal. I also had to communicate when I needed space instead of just becoming unavailable. Now, if I'm struggling, I might say, "Mommy is feeling really overwhelmed right now. I need 10 minutes to calm down and then I'll be ready to help you." This predictability, even when I need space, is so much healthier than randomly withdrawing without explanation. I also had to work on being consistently warm and responsive even when it's inconvenient or I'm tired. My son's emotional needs don't only exist when it's convenient for me, and if I want him to trust me, I need to be reliably there even when it's hard. This doesn't mean I'm at his beck and call every second, but it means my emotional availability isn't wildly inconsistent based on my mood. Comment below and be really honest. Which of these 3 habits do you recognize in yourself? There's no shame, just awareness and the opportunity to change. Here's what happened in our relationship after I consciously worked on changing all 3 habits for about 6 months. My son started coming to me again. Not all at once and not easily at first because he'd learned over the years that I wasn't safe with vulnerability. But gradually he started testing whether the changes were real. He'd share something small and wait to see if I'd dismiss it or validate it. When I consistently validated, he'd share something a little bigger. Slowly, the walls he'd built to protect himself started coming down. Now, almost a year later, he comes to me when he's struggling. He shares his feelings instead of hiding them. He asks for help instead of suffering alone. He lets me comfort him instead of pushing me away. The avoidant patterns are healing because I changed the habits that created them. Our relationship is deeper and more connected than it's ever been, and I know this work is giving him the foundation for healthy relationships throughout his life. I want to be clear about something important. If you're recognizing these patterns in your parenting, please don't spiral into guilt and shame. That doesn't help anyone. What helps is awareness, understanding, and commitment to change. Attachment patterns can be healed at any age with consistent, responsive, emotionally available parenting. It's never too late to start showing your child that vulnerability is safe, that their emotions matter, that needing you is okay, and that you're reliably there for them. The research on avoidant attachment shows it doesn't just affect childhood. Adults with avoidant attachment struggle with intimacy, have difficulty trusting others, suppress emotions to their own detriment, and often have relationship problems. But you can interrupt this pattern now by changing these 3 habits. You can give your child the gift of secure attachment, which is the foundation for emotional health, healthy relationships, and resilience. If this video helped you see patterns you didn't notice before, please share it with another parent. Avoidant attachment is so common and so misunderstood, often mistaken for positive independence. Drop a comment and tell me which habit you're going to work on changing, or share your own experience with avoidant patterns. And subscribe because we're building a community of parents who understand attachment, who are willing to look honestly at their patterns, and who are committed to breaking cycles and raising securely attached children. Thank you for being here and for doing this important work. Your relationship with your child is worth it.